Team.
So, welcome to Appreciative School Leadership Infusion. Our hosts and presenters today are Jeffery Feifield, Travis Bluemling, and myself, Danielle Naimey. Today is November 6th, and this is session number E3.
Before we launch to the next slide, I thought we would I know we briefly mentioned this, but introduce ourselves, share where we are and where we're from, and maybe something that's at the tip of your tongue, whether it's food or drink, or if you're in the mindset of this topic, that can also be shared. So I'm going to launch. I'm Travis Bluemling, he, him. I am from the United States. However, I am currently in Guatemala with my team as an elementary PE teacher. The tip of my tongue is the taste of espresso because I just had some. So that was the first thing that came to my mind.
My name is Danielle Naimey in Guatemala City. I teach middle school math and high school social studies. And on the tip of my tongue right now is I'm really enjoying how the weather here is shifting to a little bit more cool, but it's that really nice temperature where you're like, ooh, finally.
Cozy.
So I'm Jeff Fifield, and I'm the curriculum director here at the school. And I've now been here in Guatemala more time than my time growing up in the United States. So I've now become probably more Guatemalan than I have from the States. I guess the thing that's on the tip of my tongue is just having a chance to engage and talk about the topics at hand of just how do we find in this day and age working with education. So welcome.
Would you like to jump in and share a little bit? No need. If you don't want to, you could just do a side thumb and we can move on. Perfect.
Yes.
All righty, we're gonna move forward.
Does he want to go forward?
Did you want to share your name, where you're from? We know you said you're in India. Is there anything on the tip of your tongue?
Yes, I am working as a mentor teacher in the Delhi government, the state of Delhi, and we are taking care of my work is to coordinate for the academic purpose for the 5 schools assigned for me for their academic growth as well as the social and emotional well-being. I am working like a leader of this school for the academic purpose, and as well as I am involved in the training of the teachers for the senior secondary level up to +2 level. I have given the training to the teachers related to the social emotional well-being, relationship buildings, and blended learning, and as well as taking care of the educational gap, the learning gap of the student due to the pandemic. So I am working for that, and also the working for the value education, how to inculcate the values in students and teachers both. So this is my little profile, sir.
Great, you sound like you have a full plate. So we're gonna jump right in and start with the first prompt, if you wouldn't mind going. Great, so the first thing we want to discuss, and if you feel more comfortable, we can use the chat or just listen. But the first prompt we have is, if we, students, parents, and educators, were to look through this lens with our hands up like this, using our hands as a frame, and examining education as relating, what would we want to see? What do we think others would want to see? Again, feel free to unmute or use the chat. We want to have this as a collaborative conversation.
Yes, in our country, the students and parents both and educators are looking for the frame of the examination. Right now, our examination body, the CBSE, changed their patterns of the examination. They just introduced the semester systems after the pandemic, because from the last 2 years, we have missed their final examination because of the first and second waves of the COVID. So because of that, our institution has changed their pattern of the evaluations, and right now in the coming December, they are going to take the term 1 examination. In this examination, they have put the 90 questions of the MCQs types for the students, and after that in the March second term in the March, They have given them the descriptive type of the questioning, and this is because of the pandemic. Before that, we have taken the only one examination that was the descriptive type of the examination in the March and April month of the March and April every year. But for the last 2 years, we have just making some tools to evaluate the students for their performance. That's why our examination body they changed their examination pattern. So
Great.
most of the questions are related to the syllabus and stress and the learning gap, because our country was not focused on to the digital learning, and your country is very well ahead for that, and suddenly we have to change ourselves to the offline to the online, and it's a very drastic change in our profiles. As we are working as the COVID warriors in Delhi, we have worked as a in mortuary, we have worked in the health system, we have worked for the food distribution, we have worked for the management of the crowd, and we have worked for the traffic management. We have taken care of the mask. People have to wear their masks. We have on the challan duty of the masks. If they are not wearing, we have fined them for the rupees 2,000, around $30 for that purpose. So we are working as all profiles. We are working as a doctor. We are helping doctors. We are facilitate how to give the oxygen cylinder to the needy peoples, and how to give food to them. So after that, the lots of questions are related to the examination tools. We have working also for that purpose, and suddenly we have changed our profiles, and our government is also supporting us. So we have introduced lots of program in our country, in our state, especially in Delhi. We have introduced EMC, Entrepreneur Mindset Curriculum. In this curriculum, right now we are working with the business blasters. In this, we have given rupees 2,000, around $30 to the each students, and the students make their team with 3 or 4 students, and this teams is given the seed money of the rupees 2,000 each. And with this money, they have to start their business. They have to introduce their ideas and try to grow their idea. If they lost the money, there is no problem. Government is behind that, and government is giving them the money. We have provided the dresses and books, food, scholarship to the student, not taking a single penny. We are also provided the gazettes like mobile phones, tabs, etc. to the students, and make them recharge also for the internet connectivity. So right now, this is the small things we are doing here in our country, and we are trying to change the examination and evolution criteria in our country also.
Yeah, it sounds like due to the pandemic, anywhere you look are facing these unique challenges and having to adjust rather quickly, because really, who was prepared for a pandemic at this scale? And reassessing where funding goes and programs that may not have been in place, and how do we bring it in place and make it relevant and sustainable for the long future. Did either of you want to share a little bit of what, when looking through the frame, may look like for you?
I mean, for me, it's interesting because I'm a parent. I have 2 small children. One is 6 and one is 3. And so when I keep looking through the framework, I keep looking at it in the lens of, I just want my children to be good citizens. I want them to be contributing members of society. And it's interesting because my husband is German, and he's like, they need to be good at math. They need to be good at science. They need to like top grades. And I'm like, I want them to be good people. That's what I want. And so even like in our household, sometimes we have this like conflicting, view, because I'm like, wait a minute, I want my kids to be happy. I want them to be good. I want them to be like kind people, and then my husband's like, top of the line, everything. They need to like be engineers like me. And I'm like, okay.
Ma'am, same thing here, but it's from my wife's side. I have two kids. One is in the first standard, the second one is the fifth standards. At present in India, the syllabus is also a very tough task. My fifth standard son is studying about the trigonometry and the Euclid division lemma in the class fifth standards. So it's a terrible for us. As a teacher, I teach them in the 10th standard and the 12th standard. But my son is just studying this in fifth standard. And the syllabus is very difficult. As a teacher, I just feel that I am helpless in my home. I have just guided all the teachers and all the students in my profile, but as a parent, as a father, I am helpless in front of my wife. So,
That's good.
and
So-
you are absolutely correct, ma'am. That the time of the pandemic, we have the no resources as well as I'm here. I don't have any whiteboard and the marker in my home. I have just a permanent marker with me and the internet connection in my phone and a tripod. So I just you think for the whole day, how can I keep the education to my students? So suddenly I click the idea that I can use my washroom styles as a whiteboard. So for the first lockdown for the 49 days, I have my workstation is my washroom. I used to teach my students with the help of these tiles. So this is the thing, and in India we are also working. You have just told me that you are want to grow your child as a good human being. So we are also
Right.
shifted from the quality index to the value index. We are also working, and we are giving the seeds of SDGs 2030 to our students, so they can be a responsible citizen of the globe. Personally, I am working with the three goals: the climate action, quality education, and gender equality. These are three goals I have opted for me. And because of that, in October 19, the royal couple of the Netherlands visited our schools. That time I am working as a TDC, Teacher Development Coordinator. This is the person who have the heads of schools in academics. So I have worked as a TDC that times, and for that purpose, my government also sent me to the Singapore for a week-long training session, and after that, I came to come back and introduce some innovative ideas in my classrooms. I started a KYT, Know Your Teachers. In this specific program, we talk to a particular teacher, just sit in front of our HOS, heads of the schools, our principals, and we have discussed about the academic growth as well as the personal growth of the HOS and the good and bad both, positive and negative both of the teacher and HOS both. We are just sometimes HOS ask us just tell me the some demerits of mine, and we have just frankly told them that these are your demerits. You have to change yourself in this field. And we have started tea time talk, TTT. In tea time talk, we have just sit in a ring, and that times tea and snacks served to the teachers, and we have discussed in informal way, and it's converted into the formal interaction. And that times the teachers are in the comfortable position, and they have discussed about their problems they are facing in their classrooms, and the co-teachers who have teaching some other subject in the classrooms, they used to find out the solution. And we are also, yeah.
No, it just sounds like your school getting the opportunity to go to Singapore and having these resources and programs. That's quite impressive and exciting to hear that you're taking all the opportunity to get that knowledge. And with that, I thought we could move on just for questions. And the way we're going to present this, I'm not sure if you're familiar with what a waterfall is on Zoom. Have you ever done, give me a thumbs up if you've ever done a waterfall on Zoom before. Do you know what that is? Yes, amazing. So what we're going to do is we're going to present a question, and on a scale from 1 being the lowest to 10 being the highest, we are going to ask a question, and we're also going to include ourselves in this. And we find it interesting, and depending on the question, maybe we can share.
And so we can do it In live with our
Yeah,
hands or
yeah, we
fingers.
could do it live with our hands or in the chat, whichever you feel comfortable. So Danielle, do you mind launching the first question?
How well can you keep a secret?
Sometimes, only
Depending on the secret.
And depending on who. Cool, next one.
How likely are you to give up your seat to someone you don't know while on a crowded bus?
Although sometimes it could be very hard to do, depending on the day.
It's
how
a very
long
hard.
the bus ride?
Yeah,
It's a very hard to keep our seat in Delhi because all the seats around 80% seats are reserved for the female passengers. So there is no scope. We have to give the seat to the crowded bus to the other person. If he is handicapped or he is a needy, then I have to give for the male. They have to give the seats to them needy people. So there is no scope in Delhi as a
Well,
reservation of the
there you
80%
go.
seat for the female.
all right, let's see.
How much do you like to make your own decisions?
Depending if you're married or single, I suppose.
As my father is also academician, so I have to ask sometimes help with him. So I have given A to me to for them.
All right, let's see.
How much do you need to be in charge of things?
Sometimes, ma'am, because 10, because in our community of the educators, there is some need of the growth mindset. Our some around 20 to 30% educators have the fixed mindset. So we have to need some in charge types of so I can take the decision, we can take the decision for the betterment of the education system and the students. So sometimes we have to be some to in charge or some thing just like giving them the orders as you have to follow this.
Yeah,
So this is the basic reason.
I would say 6. I'm not in a leadership position at our school. Mr. Fifield is. So from a school perspective, I say it's 6.
Well, I would say I would like to do a 6. I mean, there are times and situations where you need probably more ownership and charge, but I think if you can, that we sort of thing, if you can obtain that, have
So this is the okay, the basic difference is, sir, we have around in average there are 3,000 to 4,000 students in our schools. We have a section of the around on an average 70 students in a section. Sometimes
okay.
it increase up to the 150 to 160 students in a section. So we have to have some in charge type of feeling. Our teachers have the mindset, just give us the circular, then we will do. So this is the reason we have to some authority. So you have to do this. And this is the reformatic change in Delhi. For the last 5 years, we have changed a lot.
Right. Interesting. All right, this is the last question. Oh, Jeff, did you want to add something?
No, these are for fun. So this isn't the meat yet, but we're
It's
having
a
fun.
fourth one. We have the 6 left, sir. You have
In
6
a little
left.
bit.
Yeah.
You are asking me the 10 questions.
Yeah. All right, this is an interesting one.
How neat of a person are you?
Very much, ma'am.
Now, I have a question. What
Yeah.
does the word neat mean to everyone? Because when we ask this question this together.
So, it's a physical and mental both.
See, when I read this, I saw it as
not be involved in the staff room politics. And not be involved in the HOS and teachers and that at present I got the chance to meet our education minister, director of education time to times and interact with him. So I have to be a neat person, so not to tell them that this is the person who have creating me the problem. Sometimes I manipulated the things. So as a person, I have facing a lots of problem. And not me, the profile we have taken the mentor teacher. So we have the 253 mentor teacher in Delhi itself. So all have the facing the same types of the problems. At times we have just put them as NMS We never have some doubts or sometimes of the bad things related to the teachers who are making a trouble for us, and the administrator or the academician or our officers who have creating a problem for us. We never complain about that. So that's why I'm telling that I am a neat person,
Ah, interesting.
hygienically and mentally for the purpose.
I like that. Jeff is gonna jump into the meat, or did you want to add another
No,
thing?
no, it's
Yeah.
good. So going on to
And
the next one. So
what is your requirement of a neat person? You just asked me about the neat, how neat you are. So what is your definition of neat?
Well, that's the thing. When we were doing this, the way I answered it as was neat as cleanliness. Am I a neat person at home, or are my clothes put away? But the two of you had a completely different perspective of what neat meant.
But that was just the point really being fun, just to kind of jump in for a moment, because we're going to come back in a moment, use the same sort of exercise with really the technical piece we want to look at. So starting right now, I want to jump in and I want to call your attention to the model of appreciative leadership. Several years ago, working through the Taos doctoral program, I had a chance to complete a doctoral study that looked at appreciative leadership. What was happening was I was reading Appreciative Leaders in the Eye of the Beholder, and this was the model of leadership. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but as I looked at this and I was reading it, it really made a lot of sense to me, because when I looked at worldview and practices and values, I could identify with them, because working at this school where I've been for so long, during that time, we were a very high performing school. And I wanted to try to get in and examine why. How does this fit? Because I felt like the reason, because like many places, the school will go like this, up and down in terms of performance, but it was at a peak. And I really thought from what I saw, that was due to leadership. And so in this model, if you take just a quick look, and you don't have to dive in too much, but it really has to do with a worldview. But then you look at some of the specific practices and values, because I asked myself, if I can define it, and if I can find out what it is that really is going on, can we then replicate it? Can we use it? Because in that question, what do we want in education? Well, we want something that works. So going on to the next slide. What I did was, in the study, what I found was something that really didn't surprise me, but I found by examining, I did a case study that by looking at it, I looked at high point leadership experiences within the school community. And I found that there were appreciative leadership concepts, which I called typologies, because I created these typologies from that previous work, as well as from Whitney's work of the 5 relational strategies of appreciative leadership. And I went through and I was able to pick out specific practices. And so what I found was you can make intentionally those practices happen with a certain framework. And so the appreciative leadership, when I asked this group, and much like an appreciative inquiry for the future, is this possible to use? And definitely the people in the study said, yes, we can see this carrying on. So high performing school continue using appreciative leadership to continue to be successful. Well, the next point, what happened was during my defense, Sheila McNamee, who you might recognize as part of Taos, and she's part of the plenary today, Mary Gergen, who is Ken's wife and in her own right, quite a scholar, who's no longer with us, they both kind of like doing their jobs at the defense, they kind of put out this provocative question. They said, Jeff, do you really believe that appreciative leadership can continue? And me believing in the positive, I said, yes, of course. Well, I have to tell you, being in that same school, it did not continue. That the performance of the school, in my opinion, has dipped. And if you ask me, it has to do with appreciative leadership, whether it was continued or not. So what I want to do is, and what I really believe is, and provoking, say, it's possible, it's still there, but we have to seize it. We have to make use of the framework. So going on to the next, we're back to, if anybody asks me, but looking through the lens of appreciative leadership strategies from Whitney, Truss and Bloom, and as well as Rader.
So the first one is inquiry. Inquiry lets people know that you value them and their contributions. When you ask people to share their thoughts and feelings, their stories of success or ideas for the future, and you sincerely listen to what they have to say, you are telling them, I value you and your thinking. So if anybody asks me, how much have you encountered this in your, I don't want to say career, in your life, in your current place?
Or do you do it?
Or do you do it?
1 to 10.
1 to 10.
I mean, 10 encountered it for sure.
Encountered, sometimes 10,
Practiced.
sometimes less.
Practiced,
Yes,
Like,
sometimes.
yeah, try.
It's depend.
yeah, depending on the age group. Sometimes with the little ones that I might be working with, not that I'm devaluing what they're saying, but you have to take with a grain of salt and keep them moving forward with the conversation.
So,
It's depend upon the density of the people also. In your country, you have a small population, around 30 crores only. And in our country, we have around 150 crores. So I am working in a most highly dense district, and my parent school is in a slum area. And parents are not willing to send their child, and they are not willing, they are taking drugs, and lots of problems are there. So these inquiries work for us. We have just called the outsiders, just the vendors, etc. And this is known as the CAP, collaboration and partnership program. And we have just served them snacks and tea and make them comfortable, and then ask them that take the ownership, inquiring about their problems, and give the ownership to those people who take care of our students outside our schools. So these inquiries work a worthwhile thing for us. Sometimes it's work, sometimes it fails, but it's a very good tool, sir.
so the next one is inclusion. Inclusion gives people a sense of belonging. When you practice inclusion, you open the door for collaboration and co-creation. This in turn creates an environment in which people feel they are a part of something. When they feel a part of something, they care for it. So again,
How much do we do this? Each one of us?
Eight, sir.
I would say,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
8 or 9, just about the same as well.
It's a eight because we have to make a coordination before that. And then
Yes.
coordination, then collaboration, then cooperation. So you have just co-creation. You have just introduced a new word for me, the co-creation. I want some explanation on this particular word.
Right.
so the next one, inspiration. Inspiration provides people with a sense of direction. By forging a vision and path forward, you give people hope and unleash energy. These are the foundations for transformation, innovation, and sustainable high performance.
So I wish I was better at this, what I think.
So 10.
What do you get?
I'd 8, 9. Yeah.
10.
All right.
Yes. Perfect.
You can jump on.
And integrity. Integrity lets people know that they are excited to give their best for a great good and what they can trust others to do in the same. When they lead with integrity, people know they can depend on you to connect with them in the whole. Your example sets a standard for others to follow.
I'm gonna say 9.
8.
I have room for
Say-
improvement. Uh-huh.
Yeah, because people are giving us some at the conceptual level they are ready, but in the practical life they are not showing the integrity sometimes. So that's why I'm giving 8.
All right.
Right. And so the last one, illumination. Illumination helps people understand how they can best contribute. Throughout the practices of illumination, you can help people learn about their strengths and the strengths of others. You can give them confidence and encourage them to express themselves, take risks, and support others in working from their strengths.
I'm gonna say 8 or 9. I really try hard. Sometimes it's easier than others.
9, sir. 9.
Yeah. Perfect.
All right.
I would say our scores are all pretty high here,
Yeah.
right? Which is which is a good thing. I know there's self-scores.
Yes, I wonder what other people might score us as, but
All right, so looking and using these 5 major pillars.
So one of the big takeaways for appreciative leadership, as you can see here on the slide, is can you move it just a bit? The relational capacity is to mobilize creative potential and turn it into positive power, setting in motion ripples of confidence, energy, enthusiasm, and performance that makes a positive difference in the world. And I think this, many times the business leaders will jump in and say, well, this is something really applicable to us. And this comes from the work of Whitney, Truss, and Blumenrader. But these 5 strategies which we just went through are ways to work towards this. So again, my essential question is, how can our education systems benefit from this? And I think even along the way, we've already heard, you've already called attention to some of the ways you're seeing this in action. And so what I would like to do in the next piece is going back to that question that Sheila McNamee asked us and Mary Gergen asked us, can this happen in education? Can this more? So what I'd like to do is, can we look at, go to the next slide, can we look at some highlight leadership experiences? So perhaps, Gaurav, you have some experience of, you can recount some specific ones. I know that we have here, we've been talking and discussing that we have a high point leadership experience. And to dissect it a little bit, just right now we did this, we did through the strategies, but Travis and Danielle, perhaps you have something you can start with, and then Gaurav, that'll give you a chance to perhaps think of if you have some as well to share.
yeah, the first one that popped in my mind, I used to live in Indonesia in a rural village, and I taught English. And through that experience, I had opportunities to build different things among the community as well as with the school. And so one of the main or first steps we had to do is ask the community what they wanted or what they needed or what they were lacking. And each country might do things differently, but we had a number of town hall meetings where community leaders and parents and children would come together and just discuss what they feel they were missing in their community and holes or gaps that could be filled. And from that, it was just allowed the perspective of a number of different people, young people, adults, people like grandparents, just to share, and educators. And from that, it kind of built an inspirational moment. I'm going through the 5 pillars because one, it allowed the young people to see, wow, our voices do matter, and it's being valued and it's being listened to, while also respecting the elders in the community and seeing where they can meet in the middle. Ultimately, what was brought up as a need was different than I would have anticipated, but it was a space in which youth needed a safe space to participate and exercise, to come together. And so what we ultimately did is we worked as a community to build a sports facility. So we finished a basketball court and we built 2 sand volleyball courts. And it was interesting to see it unfold because members of the community that might not have been part of that conversation were utilized for their skills to help facilitate the construction. While the youth came in and said, no, we want it to look like this because this is what we need. While the elders in the community said, well, I think it should unfold this way because we've seen the trajectory of the community over the years, and we feel as the community continues to grow, these are also elements to the project that need to be added. So it was a very interesting of course, sometimes these things take a long time, but it was a great experience of how to, one, lead or start that conversation, but then at the same time hand it over to the individuals to continue it.
So Travis, as I'm listening to you recount that high experience, that high level of leadership, leadership really lives not just in one person.
Right.
It lives throughout, but there's a certain attitude and spirit. And if you remember going back to the initial model, you're seeing that worldview, you're seeing that in practice. And as I'm just kind of looking at the 5 strategies, I could tick them off as you were going down through. And so I'm willing to bet nobody called that appreciative leadership.
Correct. I didn't even use that terminology.
right? But this is one of the things I think that I'm hoping kind of like a spread, that sometimes if you have something to hang it on, whether it's the term or the word or the intention, then maybe that might happen more. But I love the way that came about. Danielle, I know you have a story.
All right, so historically, I've been a math and a science teacher. You know, that's kind of been my realm. And this year, one of our social studies teachers had to unexpectedly leave the country. And so they were filling her position from within. And so the principal came to me, he's like, listen, how do you feel about teaching 9th grade human geography? I'm like, let's do it. That's great, absolutely. And then I was like, I haven't taught social studies in my whole life. Okay, great. Last time I took a social studies course was in college. But you know, I knew the group, and the group is kind of a historically, they're more difficult group. I taught them as 6th graders, and I was like, oof, okay, let's take it on. But like through the years, my relationship has grown with them, because as I wasn't a school, like I wasn't their classroom teacher anymore, I could build that relationship with them, seeing them in the hallway, giving them a hard time, complimenting them, you know, because I could walk away. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna take this. So the first thing was, I'm like, guys, this is great. I'm your new teacher. I'm so excited. I wanted this position. Like, I'm fighting for you. You guys are my favorites. And as the kids get older, they're like, Miss, you call everybody your favorite. Like your bar favorite is every single student. And I'm like, you caught me, but you're my favorite. And so we started to do that. And so we had like some fun. And then like, I was like, one day it was just like, guys, what is going on? Like, you're at, like, I'm going to give you the same conversation I give my own children. And they're 5 or 6 and 3. And I was like, you can't do this. You're better than this. Come on. Like, I know you can do better than this. Why am I talking to you about these basic things? And they're like, okay, we can do this. So the next day they came in and they did well. The next class, same story. I'm like, what is happening? Like, I know you can do better than this. Come on, like, you can do this. Like, I know you can. Do you know what I expect from you? And they were like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, can you do it? They're like, we can do it. I'm like, okay, let's do it. So then they produced beautiful work. And I'm like, okay, look, now you can do it. Now I expect you to do it from now on. And they were like, you caught us. But the rippling effect that's happened with other teachers is they're kind of like, they're starting to, you know, they're starting to own their own learning. They're starting to move up. They're starting to do it. And I'm like, you know, I personally think it was that they needed someone to believe in them, because I think they kept on going as like a group, and people would be like, not
this group again.
Yes, not this group again. And I was like, okay, guys, this is great. I wanted to be here with you. You're my favorites. And some of them who haven't picked up on that, I call everyone that, they're now just starting to slowly rise to the occasion more and more, to where we know they can perform at.
So what's leaping out as I'm listening to that, and I know this group, and believe me, they're a handful. It's inspiration, and it's an inspiration way of doing things that I wouldn't be able to do. I don't have that sort of way, but you're begging to them a sense of integrity, that you're working with them. And you know, you're inviting them into the inquiry, because you asked them, you opened up the floor to them, and I know how they responded. But you know, that is a way of being. That is pretty cool. Well, we've had a couple stories. Gaurav, do you have perhaps a story or two to share with us, so we can listen
Yes,
for the strategies?
First, tell a story of the high point leadership experience. I have experience in my previous principals, the HOS, who is a very good leader. As I earlier told you that my school is in the slum area, and we have a lots of problems, and because of our result is 100%, but quality index at that time is around 70 out of 100. And he gradually upgraded our school with his leadership, and we have taught the Delhi states in our 10th standard, and took the 5th position in the 12th standard with science, humanities, and the commerce stream. And we have given the topper, and we have 21 students selected for the IITs. So the leadership I have just seen him in him. He's a very good leader. He just collaborated with community, as well as because of his willpower, he just make our school as a plastic free school. Is the first school of the world who is the plastic free, 100% plastic less school, and the garbage free school in Delhi in slum area. And we have the only I think that times is a single SDGs wall in the world. Because of that, the ambassador of the Netherlands visited us, and then the royal couple of the Netherlands. So the leadership, the kind of the leadership I have seen in him, and the just this year's the global teacher prize winner Ranjit Dishale. He just shows the leadership I have inspired from him also. He is working as a primary teacher in the government school where the students from the lower middle class or the lower class is the economically they are in the lower group, and the students are not have a single penny to give to the teacher, and that teacher Ranjit Desale changed the whole scenario in his district in the Maharashtra, and he just make a U cards and some barcodes and QR codes types. So just give the QR codes to the students to provide them the gazettes, and then scan the particular. He just developed the QR codes for the plants, for the study material, etc. to have them the students. So he's also the. I have just seen the kind of the leadership in these two, my HOS Rakesh Sevalti and then the Ranjit Desale. And these are the real heroes who have just took the student from to the not in academic as well as the good human being. As I have already told you that I am working with for the value index and as well as our academic growth also. Just ma'am just told is as a maths and science teacher just ask about the geography, and I am the exception for that purpose. I am the PG, my first PG in electronics in radio wave and communication. At present, I am working as a maths teacher, and I have a geography teacher also, and as well as the I have graduated with gold medalist in philosophy. And at present, I am working with the other Vedanta for just inculcate this with the science. Okay, what is the meaning of these sounds, the Om or some chantings, and what is the relationship between the frequency and the outer world, the metaphysics. I am working for the metaphysics for that time. So this is the thing to connect and appreciate the leadership studies. Second question, the answer to the second question, my previous HOS make some abbreviation for the particular things, and he makes some, I just told you, TTT, tea time talk, then KYT, know your teacher, CAP, community collaboration and partnership, and we have adopted some nearby school, and we just work with them for their academic growth. As our school is the 22 schools in Delhi, only 22, and we have the leader of the education in Delhi. At present, we have introduced 20 more schools. 14 from that RPVs convert into the SOSE, and this is because of the leadership. In SOSE, we first time going to teach pure sciences in our 9th standard. Previously, we have taught these pure sciences in Indian Institute of Science and IITs only. But in these 20 schools, there are 5 schools for STEM. And we have the collaboration with some universities of your New York University, Singaporean universities, and UK. Oxford and Cambridge also. So with the help of these, we are running here the STEMs, and in these schools, we have making them as engineers as well as the scientists and medical professionals. So we are going, if this experiment is successful, then we are going to change the whole education system of our country. We are experimenting with 20 schools this year, and next year we are going to introduce the 100 schools for SOSE. And if this, we are just giving us all forces to make them successful. If they are successful, we have 2 exclusive schools for the performing and visual arts. From where we are just focused on the art section, 5 for humanities and 5 for commerce sections. For them, we are going to teach them related to the life skills and the vocational training, etc. So this is the leadership shows by our Education Minister of Delhi, Mr. Manish Sisodiya. And I am putting them our pocket, मेरी pocket के लिए oh sorry, I just put it some in Hindi. I am putting some innovative practices. I am working with the innovative practices in this pandemic. I just use all the resources worldwide. I have joined lots of seminars, webinars, and conferences in the first year of the pandemic in 2020, and I learned a lot from you people, from Finland to Philippines, Hong Kong to UK, and Singapore to USA. So I have just read about the education systems and so many things, and I am just with this past experience, I am writing a book on the innovative Brexit India and worldwide. So this is the learning from my side, and I just put these learnings from my pocket.
That from what I'm
And
hearing,
I just want to ask a question that you inclusion, you have just put the collaboration, and one thing, the co-orientation. So I just want some explanation on the co-orientation. Please explain the co-orientation.
the orientation, correct?
Yeah. So how can we use this co-orientation for our betterment for our education system, or as a teacher
Yeah.
or as academic, how to use this?
Well, you know, it's an interesting way, and I think it's still what I'm seeing in terms of the literature search, that it's not so wildly used. I'm seeing in some universities in the United States that they've started to try to use it in some of the faculties, which has been interesting. Appreciative leadership has been more of a industrial model with the organizations for business, but obviously, as you can see, it's a bit of the softer skills, so it's an interesting. I had a chance to work with a local non-governmental organization a few years ago here, and what we did is we started with their different groups of leadership, their circles, and the higher circle, the next circle, next circle. And we started kind of what we did here today is we started with working with inventories, personal inventories, and then at each circle having these conversations, because just listening to you right now, the title of the session is Infusion. I'm excited listening to you, you know, hearing what you're just sharing right now. And when people do that, that breeds on that. So what we did with that group, and unfortunately, until that leader left that institution, he convened those different circles, and it started to grow out like that, because they would start to have this, you know, these topics, share these instances, as well as look at these strategies and say, where are they being used? But then how could we? Some of these strategies don't come easily for some people. Just like when we asked earlier, are you a neat person? Well, if somebody's not a neat person, you're not going to make them a neat person right away, but they can get better at it, right? So, you know, especially if people around them are excited to work with it. So I think that's one of the ways that I've had a chance to work some. Currently, right now, with our current leadership, in our weekly leadership meetings, I have a piece that has to do with appreciative leadership each time. And so it's at the center of our table, and I'm engaging them in the same way. But an interesting point is, does it have to be the leaders? Because as Danielle was explaining, as Travis was saying, those leaders really, if you embrace leadership for everybody, it can be everyone.
Thank you, sir, for giving me some insight of co-orientation. So how can I use, I'll certainly use this in my academic purpose, and as well as for grow myself as a leader for academic purpose only, not as a politician. I don't have any interest in the politics, so I don't want to be a politician, but I want to grow myself as a academic. See, so I'm just this is a very fruitful for me. The inquiry, illumination, inclusion, inspiration, and integrity. Integrity, I think, yeah.
I think it's for us as a team, we have that privilege of having that conversation amongst the three of us. But it does stem from that conversation, and having Jeff as someone who's a professional at this, instilling it in so many of our meetings, whether we are aware of it or not, he's putting it in the conversation or including it, in which has read conversations or created conversations that have supported this approach. So sometimes it doesn't have to be as like, we are doing this right now, but rather incorporating the conversation as a natural progression and allowing and supporting those circles, as you mentioned, to do the same.
Yeah.
So.
Which leads us to. And so now, really, when you're looking at this, if you were going to look through the lens now, kind of where do you see the benefits of appreciative leadership in education? Kind of exactly what we were talking about.
And something that I mean, listening to your story, when I'm looking through this lens, and if I'm listening from a perspective of the story you shared, is how you took these leadership opportunities when they were given to you and not given or asked of you. And the huge reason that was is because the leadership in the school has seen how you've been able to step into these roles and take responsibility, and they've built trust around you. And I think that that's significant. So when I see the benefits of this in education, it's those exact examples where you see a whole, who can we pull from that has demonstrated these leadership skills? Who can we rely on and trust? And you're one of those people. I think we got a message on the chat. Let's see.
Probably to say the amount of time.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Of course.
Yeah, go ahead.
Of course, sir, you are just giving me some insight, and I just seen my screen also. I just want to add something in this, the compassion
Please.
and the resilience. Both are also important for this purpose. If the emotional intelligence of the communities are created, then it's depend upon the resilience of the people. If they have the compassion with them, and also the positive result for the people and planet. So this is the pandemic changed us a lot. Before this
Correct.
pandemic, we are a little bit selfish. We are just thinking about ourselves. After this pandemic, people change a lot. In my country, I just see they are ready to help each other. They are know the they know about the need of the community. They need about the family. As India has a very well cultural and the spiritual environment in itself, but nowadays our country's youngest is just following the best. We are here from the joint family, we are converting into the nuclear families, and nowadays we just think again about the culture. As in India, we have a culture of the namaste, not the handshake. And at present, the need of the hour is the namaste, not the handshake, because of the COVID.
Right.
So in ancient Indian culture and the education system, we have the roots and the seeds of how to tackle these types of the problems of the world. So we are going to find our roots again, and we are working to combine this education system with our Vedic cultures. That's why I'm telling you earlier that I am working with the Advaita Vedanta of some spiritual or the philosophy of Indian philosophy. The Swami Vivekananda sides is I think you know about the Swami Vivekananda. So we are using the Vivekananda is the person who have just give the lecture in 18th century in your World Religious Conference, and he has awarded the zero period for himself, the break times, and he just introduced your country with the brother and sisters of the America. And this is the thing, and whole the scenario is changed to people clap for around 15 to 30 minutes for the honor of that person, and he just changed the whole scenario. So we are going to incorporate those qualities, those ethics in our education system again.
I'm
we
not
are thinking over that. Yeah.
not to jump ship or anything, but we have 42 seconds, and I just wanted to wrap it up as a group.
Just carry on, sir.
I've appreciated the perspective from what you're going through as a leader in India. Also, I don't know how, if you have more questions, we have 29 seconds. Jeff is the go-to, but thank you very much for attending.
Yeah, sorry to cut off here, but I'm just gonna say thank you as well. I've really enjoyed this time with you, and so thank you.
And we're gonna
Thank you
stop
very
recording
much.
right now.
And